Blessings, beloveds. Let's talk about the new moon in Virgo, which is literally just hours away. Sort of left it till last minute. Sometimes that happens. That's life. So, I have been obviously reflecting on this quite a bit. It's quite a interesting new moon. And before I go there, I think I just want to just highlight a couple of matters which are more worldly type of events, but they are very, very interesting. One being that Anthony Fauci has resigned, and there's no time of birth for him, but if you just look at the transits to his actual natal chart, the transiting planets to his natal planets, it's pretty phenomenal. It's pretty literal. What's playing out and what's happening with him at the moment. And I just thought to myself, how convenient to resign now, after having been directly involved in putting together, what words could I use to describe it? After, presenting something to the world as a necessity, which for the most part hasn't been. Anyway, that's a subject that I don't really want to get into, but I just wanted to highlight that he's got some interesting transits happening to his chart, including coming up to his Uranus return. So, he's close to 84 years old. It's very interesting. I'll bring up his chart in a minute. The other thing was, and this is all relevant to transiting Uranus and transiting Saturn, still within range of being square each other, right? Still playing out in the collective field, in the consensus reality, Saturn world specifically. Novak Djokovic has been rejected from playing in the USA Open because he's not juiced up, which doesn't surprise us, but it is incredibly disappointing. But I really admire him for just sticking to his truth, right? And what feels authentic for him, because, he's a big personality, as it were, relative to the world of athleticism. And even so, he's still stuck to his guns, He hasn't caved into the plan and the program. He's just stuck to his truth, and that's admirable, because that takes balls, basically. And that's what he's done. There's an astrological event that takes place in the USA. I'm not sure if it's annually, but anyway, it's coming up soon. I'm not going to name it, and I'm not going to name the astrologer that has been rejected from attending, but I just wanted to highlight that a really great astrologer has been rejected from presenting at this conference, astrological conference, because he doesn't have the juice inside him as well. So it's just an example, right, of that even in the astrological world and astrological community, the world of Saturn is very, very strong. There are Saturnian type of astrologers and systems, and there are Uranus and Uranian types, and that's always been the case, actually. But we're just seeing it in a pretty different way at the moment relative to this drama that's been playing out the last 2 or more years. So I just wanted to highlight those matters. I was actually really gutted for this astrologer who was not able to present, because he's actually a real astrologer. He's incredibly valuable in the community. So that was very disappointing, but there it is. It shows up everywhere. So let me just go to sharing my screen. This new moon in Virgo is really, really interesting. First of all, I just want to, actually, before I go there, so here's Anthony Fauci. I just want to quickly show you that one, that one, and that one. Okay. So Fauci's chart in the middle, it doesn't really matter. Actually, I didn't even really need to swap that, but because we have no time of birth, okay? This is just, just put 12 here. We don't have time of birth. So never mind the house positions of where everything is, okay? See that? Uranus approaching his natal Uranus, the North Node approaching his natal Uranus, transiting Saturn, squaring his Mercury. Sorry, what am I saying? I meant to say Neptune. Neptune squaring his Mercury, which is the natal signature he has. He has Mercury square Neptune in his natal chart, the classic signature for liars, by the way. I'm not saying if you have a Mercury square Neptune that you are a deceptive person, but the signature of Mercury Neptune does point to that capacity. And whether someone actualizes that to the extreme that someone like this fella has, that's up to them. Clearly he has, in my opinion. So, transiting Neptune, squaring his Mercury, Uranus return, the nodes are activating as well, his Uranus. What else was there? There was something else that I'd noticed as well. South node on his Mars. It's definitely very interesting. There was something else. I can't quite seem to pick it up at the moment. But anyway, in any case, those couple of transits there are very, very, very significant relative to the stage of his life where he's at. Anyway, we're not going to focus on him. That's not what this video is about. But I just wanted to show you guys that. So here's the other thing I wanted to show you. Now, I've taken everything out deliberately in order to emphasize what's going on with Venus at the moment. This is called a grand fixed cross. If you look at the shape of it, you can see that it mimics a cross of matter. It's in fixed signs, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, hence why it's called a grand fixed cross. It's in play for around about a week. That is, its energy is activated for about a week. Just going to close my door because my kitty came back in. Quite a difficult energy pattern, to say the least. How it will play out, for each individual, obviously is going to be extremely different, right? There was somebody on my Facebook page that said that they've had well, she wasn't very specific, so I don't quite know, and I did prompt her to give us some further information, because I thought if something really positive's happened out of this, I'd love to know about it. It'd just be very interesting. But in any case, Venus is being very challenged, very, very challenged for this month of August, and particularly with the Ceres Venus conjunction, which we know we've had a couple of female celebrities that have passed on, spoken about that previously, Olivia Newton-John, Anne Hershey, and there's been a couple of others as well, an Australian artist, and there's been some other woman, I've just forgotten her name, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I've just got a million things on my mind at the moment, so I've just forgotten some people's names. But in any case, the Ceres Venus in Leo has shown us the loss of some female celebrities that we've had. In our own life, this could also be speaking to matters of loss and grief in our own personal life, which could be around relationships, friendships, and it could also be around financial matters as well, because Ceres is the goddess that brings up grief and loss. She's she's a very, very powerful asteroid, as I continuously say, because that is a fact, and often an extremely difficult energy, right? If you've had a matter of grief going on in your life, loss and grief, pain, loss, essentially, that it could have been going on for some time. This is certainly going to bring that up in a very raw manner. So this could be an indicator of something that gets triggered or activated, or it could also be an extension of something that has already been going on for you, right? I mean, it has for me, for instance, the transcendence of my father, this brings all this up for me, you know, in huge ways. Actually, not an easy energy at all. The opposition to Saturn is really difficult, to be honest. You know, it's a difficult energy. Venus is not comfortable with Saturn. Quite awkward, actually. Venus being the principle of love, unconditional love, the deepest aspect of love outside of Neptune, which is the source to all love. In any case, Venus is always looking to find ways to share that love, to express that love, to give it, to receive it. And, you know, on other levels, she's also the planetary body or archetype that corresponds to pleasure and enjoyment, right? The things that we love, the things that we love to experience, love to taste, love to feel, love to have, love to feel connected to. And Saturn is an energy of separation, division, restriction, restraint, control, suppression, all the lovely words. So, you know, Saturn opposite Venus, she's not going to be comfortable with that. That's a reality. And you've got Ceres there as well. So, you know, this will activate a pretty difficult situation around separation and loss for certain people. It's not going to be that for everybody, naturally, but it will speak to that for certain people. The fact that Uranus is in this picture as well, because Uranus and Saturn are squaring each other, there's tremendous tension here, tremendous tension, and the nodes are here as well, which points to an area, a zone in life at the moment, all things to do with Venus, where she's being pulled in a couple of different directions. And it is, you could say, perhaps a part of a person's fate or destiny in their path. Fate and destiny are very complex subjects, and one could talk about those for hours. And there are many different schools of thought and views on those subjects. But the way I like to interpret fate and destiny, fate would be Pluto, which is not figured in this chart at the moment, but if it was, it would be sitting somewhere here in the second house, right? But the position of Pluto at the moment, it forms a very wide in conjunct to these planets in Leo, but it's very wide, so that's why I haven't included it. But in any case, fate is Pluto. And some people have the view of the word fate representing a sense of disempowerment, that we can't do anything about it because it's fated. It's only fated to the extent of our being unconscious to it, because Pluto is unconscious, and Pluto directs the soul's path, intentions and desires, all of which are primarily unconscious. And through that journey, the more conscious we become, the more we can direct that energy, those desires, those intentions of the soul, so that the personality can catch up, right, as it were, and align with the soul's intentions. When those intentions of the soul are not aligned with the personality, then the personality is what experiences life as fated events, because it's not in alignment with the soul's intentions, not consciously anyway. And so there's a conflict, there's an interface there of wanting different things. The soul wants to go this way and the personality wants to go this way. So that's why it feels like fate, as it were, but it's actually all pre-written before you were born anyway. So no one decided it for you. You decided it unconsciously from the soul level, right? Destiny would be a really great word to describe the experience of the nodes. The nodes are our destiny, destination. Destiny, destination, mean virtually the same thing. It is a destination we are heading towards. And Pluto facilitates that destination on the nodal axis. So the nodal axis in our birth chart and the transiting nodal axis, that's always active as well. So in this case, we have, the destination of Venus in Leo, conjunct Ceres, square Uranus, opposite Saturn. So her destination is she's trying to work through this polarity here, Scorpio Taurus. And there's tremendous tension from Uranus because Uranus triggers that component of needing to remove conditions, Saturn, that hold us back, that block us, that suppress us, that don't enable us to give full expression, Venus in Leo. And Saturn is the opposing force, literally opposing because it's opposite Venus, which is likely to be projected to an external person, persons, or situation. And Saturn is many things, but it's authority figures, systems, all of which that pertain to the consensus reality. So Venus is feeling really challenged here. She's being blocked, as it were, by Saturn to an extent, and she's being triggered and activated by the sense of needing to liberate herself from matters that hold her back, Uranus. And in Leo, she's really fiery, she's passionate, she's seeking to express directly from her heart. And her heart could be quite hurt here because Ceres is right there as well. So there's a tremendous tension going on here. And all along this, she's trying to find her way through this destination pathway of the nodes, leaving things behind, Scorpio, that speak to Scorpio fields, Scorpio themes, and connecting further to the North Node in Taurus, which Venus rules, of course, which is about stability, survival, one's own resources. Not an easy configuration, and can speak to some losses that could occur here. I could go into more detail about this, but I really want to get to the new moon in Virgo. But this is a very important energy pattern. And so you would want to, look at where this is transiting in your own birth chart. And the Uranus-Saturn square has been active for, almost a couple of years, really. And so that's been in certain houses in your birth chart for the last couple of years. So it's working through those issues, those themes, whatever houses it's in your birth chart. And now, with the nodes that have caught up, it's bringing in a change of destiny, a change of destination. You might have thought that you were going this way, but now you're actually going to be going this way. And there is some tension and resistance there, but there is a change of direction that is purposely taking place. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and also remembering that, because when I just think back to, my own personal experiences in life, there's so many times where something happened, an outcome was presented where I didn't feel connected to that outcome, let's say. And then later I realized, upon retrospect, that outcome was such a blessing in disguise. And it was, very purposely designed to play out in the way that it had. But, that part of our being a person who has its own sort of ideas of what what it's going for, what it think it wants, what it thinks it needs, and so forth, can be in complete conflict, with what it thought the desired outcome should be, for instance, right? So, in other words, I'm just simply saying that sometimes, the path changing directions ends up being a real blessing in disguise. So don't lose faith, don't lose hope, because what's being activated at the moment as well, which I'll get into with the new moon, is the fixed star Spica, which is one of the brightest stars and the highest spiritualized star and highest star of spiritual protection. So we've got her being activated at the moment because Spica sits in the constellation of Virgo. Now the constellations are different to the tropical zodiac signs that we use in tropical Western astrology. Okay, so there are always a few layers of things, and it's important to be aware of that because we are in Virgo season at the moment. But if you look at the constellation of Virgo, it's actually, if not the biggest, one of the biggest constellations out of all the constellations in the sky. And so in the female figure that appears as the virgin female figure for the zodiac sign of Virgo, there are lots of stars that are in that constellation of Virgo. So when the sun moves into Virgo, it's radiating its light beams, its force, its energy, its solar flame, heart-centered flame, right into that beautiful goddess Virgo feminine archetype that brings in Mother Nature, Earth, the goddess, fertility, cleaning, clearing, giving birth, fertility. Fertility in this sense needs to be understood from a broad field, in that giving birth to, we could be giving birth to an idea, to a pathway, to a project. We're not just talking about physically giving birth to a child, although it can be any of those things as well. So there's a lot of hope, right? We have to ride this wave here. And I did an audio the other day on Uranus being stationary, preparing to go retrograde. And yeah, I was pretty fired up through that particular session. And I still feel that fire inside my belly at the moment, actually. But the main message through that particular audio was to transmit to people that when Uranus is stationary, when any planet is stationary, it's like this massive portal of energy that has tremendous power. And because it is Uranus, it is not an easy energy. It can bring in shock, trauma, the complete unexpected. And anything we're not prepared for can feel extremely challenging to deal with. And we can't really prepare for Uranus type of energies, themes or portals, because Uranus corresponds to that is unpredictable. So how can you predict? How can you even prepare for something that's unpredictable? That's why I said we just need to ride the wave. Whatever wave shows up for you, whatever curveball is thrown in your path. It can be quite a shock though, right? So that's why I did that audio, because Uranus was stationary for a couple of days, and that zone, that pocket right there was extremely powerful for things to be activated for each of us, depending on where this Uranus is transiting in our chart and what it has been speaking to the last few years while it's been in Taurus, in your Taurus house, in your birth chart, right? For me, it's in my 4th house. So, it brought about the transcendence of my father. It brought about moving home. It's brought about lots of disruptions on those exterior levels for me, but also tremendous growth and development in the inner spaces of my soul. Fourth house is soul. Breaking the conditioned patterns of what the fourth house has held there for me, so on and so forth. I don't really want to talk about me, but I'm just giving an example, right? Okay, so let me just step out of this. So just bear in mind this pattern is quite challenging. For many people it will be challenging. For many others it might not be. But if it is challenging for you, I can completely understand. That's normal, and don't worry, it'll be okay. I said that in the Uranus stationary audio session that I did the other day as well. Don't worry, it's okay. The destination is changing, and it's important to hold that faith. It's really important to really believe. You know, when we get tested with what feels like it's the worst situation ever, or a situation that, you know, just this is just so screwy, I really don't know how I'm going to cope with this. I really don't know how I'm going to manage. We are resilient beings, resilient spiritual beings. I put a post on my Facebook yesterday where I said, no matter what happens, you are infinite, and in brackets, immutable consciousness that can never be destroyed. And that statement is an absolute truth. Can never be destroyed. Infinite. Think about Jesus Christ on the cross. Right to him being crucified on the cross, you know, he still had that deep heart-centered space and love, and was able to say, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. You know, such valuable teachings in the heart and soul of Christianity. And I'm not talking about indoctrinated religion, not at all, but just the beautiful metaphors and symbols and teachings that teach about love and compassion and forgiveness. Because the ego and the personality, which drives pretty much the entire Western world, which is based on greed and insecurity and superiority and inferiority, and ownership and righteousness and power and so on and so forth, is at a, you know, very specific collective crisis point, which is reflected through much bigger cycles. And the Venus star point ingressing into Libra, October, 22nd of October 2022, the chart for that ingress is, there are some challenging things to it for sure, mainly because Pluto is forming a square to that Venus star. And I'll come back and talk about that, maybe with Ariel, I'll see, or maybe on my own. But there's tremendous, we can take comfort in knowing that Venus is moving out of Scorpio into Libra, because Libra does correspond to fairness, equality, justice, peace. So moving on to the new moon, which is right here. So this is, you know, pretty interesting. We've got 4 degrees of Virgo, and the primary aspect is the Mars Mars in Gemini, which is right here, forming an exact square to the new moon. Okay, 4 degrees of mutables is a critical degree, by the way. And a critical degree from that perspective implies something critical is emanated, is activated from these energies. So it's quite a critical new moon, we could say, right? Now, this new moon is ruled by Virgo, by Mercury. Mercury rules Virgo. Mercury is in Libra. Mercury also rules the sign that Mars is in, because Mercury rules both Virgo and Gemini. So Mercury is quite important for this new moon cycle. Mercury will be going retrograde 10th of September, and Mars will be going retrograde 31st of October. Hope you can't hear that vacuum. That's the cleaner cleaning the building. Nothing I can do about that. So, new moon in Virgo. First of all, think about the constellation Virgos I was talking about before, which is one of the largest constellations and contains and holds within it a number of different stars and goddesses, like the goddess Astrasia, for example, the fixed star Spica. There's quite a few of them. And even on an archetypal level, you know, we can bring in Ceres, Persephone, the goddesses that correspond to nurture and care. Because Ceres, as much as it is a very difficult archetype based on its mythology, it is also the principle of nurture. It really shows up the lack of nurture and the loss that occurs, but it also represents the principle of nurture and how do we foster and facilitate that nurture, you know, in ourselves, in our life, in others, in the world, in our relationships, etc. So Virgo is, as I frequently have said before, one of the most complex signs in the zodiac and has so many layers to it. Just made a note of something. Yes, so Virgo in the Latin language translates to self-contained. Self-contained. It is a feminine archetype. It really does connect to Mother, Gaia, Earth, healing, health, self-improvement. Now, what's the self-improvement about? It's about the fact that when we get to the point of Virgo in the zodiac, in the wheel, we've just come out of Leo, where the personality and the ego is at its most grand position. Rightly so, it's Leo, ruled by the sun. It's the personality actualized. So when we get to Virgo, it's now time to, that gets flipped over, which means we need to take a step back and now start looking at the areas that we further need to work on self-improvement. Of course, matters of health are very, very highlighted and can be very important. Sometimes that might be critical for certain people who are going through health matters in their life. I've actually got a really, really dear friend who is going through a very serious health battle, and I've known this person most of my life, so it's very hurtful actually, and very hard to even talk about. but it's a serious thing. Okay, so anyway, so for some people, this might activate some health matters. On the other hand, it's a really great time to start working towards some goals that you might have around your own health, you know, around nutrition, health, diet, exercise. It might be, you know, giving up certain things, giving up certain habits, you know, trying to create new habits that are just healthier for you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, you know. Virgo helps us recognize where we have to do more work. It's a very, very complex sign. And because, I mean, even the Latin word for Virgo means self-contained. So it takes us back into those interior, internal layers of ourselves, right? Leo is very out there, you know, expressive, radiating that solar light, the heart-centered energy and so forth. And Virgo takes us in. If you think about Virgo to Aries on the ascendant, which is the beginning of the zodiac, Aries to Virgo is an inconjunct, quincunx aspect. Aries to Leo is a trine aspect, right? So if we think about the ascendant as the emergence of self, birth, when we get to Virgo, halfway around the zodiac, we realize there's more work to be done here. And it doesn't matter what age or what stage we are in life, there's always room for improvement for all of us. And through different passages and different life stages, we will possibly need to make, you know, certain adjustments or changes or give certain things up or whatever it may be, right? But the square to Mars is difficult, okay? It is difficult because it's a square aspect, which implies conflict, tension. It is dynamic, so it has a push with it, and that push can be can create drama and conflict because Mars pushes energy out, the Sun pushes energy out. The Sun can represent Sun square Mars, for instance, can be you know, attracting and coming into conflict with persons of authority, for instance. It can be that, right? Because the Sun does also reflect persons of authority to some extent, right? So it's just you know, we're talking about two ego planets, Mars, Sun, in conflict with each other. So it's going to be inwardly felt and also projected externally. And it's like, you know, two very strong positions wanting to hold or step into that same space, and they both can't. That's what a square means. You can't, these energies can't occupy the same space. They're trying to, and one wants to overpower the other. And it's pretty touch and go with the Sun and Mars because they're both planets of will, both planets to do with personality, both planets of energy, willpower, and so forth. And who's going to win out? It's hard to say. But the thing is that what I'm getting at is that it can really stir up a lot of anger, you know, towards a situation, towards a person, towards a situation that may feel very unjust, for instance, you know. Hopefully the Mercury in Libra will correct the injustice that has occurred if that's something that has been a theme for you, you know, because Mercury in Libra is about being fair, just, equal, and seeing both sides equally, not being one-sided, right? So I feel the Mercury in Libra gives a bit of hope to this energy, because this new moon is an energy that is going to speak to the next month, right? As the moon continues to travel around, and then it's going to oppose the sun. That's going to be Virgo Pisces, actually, in 2 weeks' time. And so it is worth looking at, well, where's 4 degrees of Virgo in my birth chart, and where's 17 degrees of Virgo Pisces, because that's where the full moon is going to be. And so what starts now has a very powerful point in 2 weeks' time when there's a full moon, right? And if the new moon and the full moon hits off very specific things in your chart, then this lunation cycle can speak to very important things. Once again, you know, a new moon can't be enough to be the instigator of your life changing, as it were, but it can be a timer of things being activated, of other things that are also speaking to the same path, let's say, or the similar sort of things, right? But I just want to say, be aware. I mean, at best, this Mars square, the new moon, is tremendous sense of energy, right? There's tremendous sense of will, desire, passion, energy, emotional energy, physical energy, sun, moon. So at best, it can activate that emotional and physical charge towards all the Virgo things. And if it's not health things, you know, it could just be matters around just becoming more organized, or Virgonized, as I like to call it. More organized in your life. You know, there might be some particular routines and rituals that you want to integrate, that you want to adjust, that you want to change. You know, with Virgo is the time, you know, it's the energy that helps us tap into that progress, that work in progress, to be able to do that. And you know, when I was saying before that, you know, we've stepped out of Leo, as it were, from the sun's position, we're going to Virgo, and I've done a video on this, and it's a video on the concept of the ego personality as it's formed, developed through the entire zodiac. The 3 most complex signs are Virgo, Scorpio, and Pisces, and that's where the ego has tremendous shifting points in the zodiac. At Virgo, it experiences ego denial. Ego denial. In Scorpio, it experiences ego death, and in Pisces, it experiences, or it's supposed to experience, ego transcendence. And good luck with that, because, you know, while we're in a physical body, we can't completely transcend our ego. But that's a whole other subject. You know, if you've got lots of planets in the 12th house, then you are using your ego, as it were, you know, to give service to the world. You know, that's one example, for instance. In any case, with a new moon in Virgo, we kind of have to put our ego, our personality, over here to the side and say, okay, let me just have a look and assess at what else I can actually work on here. How can I improve the quality of my life? How can I improve on myself? How can I be honest about the areas that I do need to work on? How can I see that, confront that, understand that, recognize that, without going into the extreme side of Virgo, where it can be so critical and judgmental. We don't want that. We want to, that's there, and that will come up for some people, but I would encourage to go more into the feminine, earthy levels of the constellation of Virgo, which has all those beautiful goddesses contained in there, showing us that we need to nurture, we need to take care of, we need to heal, we need to clean, we need to clear. Ooh. That dog is very loud. So we can, the Mars can help us inject the willpower, the energy, the drive, the assertion, the directness, right? Mars is very direct. We can inject all that to our greatest capability on a positive level to achieve some goals around our life in terms of improving ourselves and our life to some extent, right? At worst, the Mars can bring up lots of conflict, anger, can be, fighting with others, attracting situations and people where there's battles and arguments and conflict and anger and so on and so forth. And it's going to be up to each of us to be aware of that, because if we're drawing that in, it's an aspect of ourself that we are not dealing with, that we are not giving a channel to. We've got to give a channel to this energy because it's there, right? It needs a channel. And unconsciously and subconsciously, actually more so subconsciously, if we're not integrating this energy at the level where it can be constructive, then we are subconsciously attracting people that mirror that Mars, anger side, shadow side of Mars, that presents us with resistance. There's, I need to fight, I'm going to fight you, so to speak, right? So it's just themes like that need to be considered from that conflicting perspective. And furthermore, Mars is, as I said before, is going to go retrograde on the 31st of October. So what's that? That's Halloween time, isn't it? In the USA. They don't even do Halloween here in Australia. Hardly anyone does. Bit of a shame because I think it's such an interesting event. But anyway, there's going to be an awful lot of reconsideration, re-evaluation about matters that speak to information, knowledge, words, contracts, ideas, things that have been spoken about, that either have been agreed to or not. There's going to be a redirection and reevaluation of all of that, because Mars is going retrograde in Gemini and Mercury is going retrograde in Libra. The two air signs. Air has to do with logos, word, speech, communication, contracts, writing, agreements. And Mars is essentially the god of war, conflict. So there might be some matters that have been conflicting that will be reassessed over time. And I'll come back to talk about that very specifically, because Mars doesn't go retrograde for a little while yet. And furthermore, it's going to be retrograde for about 6-7 months, which is a long time. As I understand, Mars hasn't been retrograde in Gemini since 1943. That seems like it's pretty important, right? Now, I mean, Mars in Gemini is arms, guns, just want to highlight that. So, very interesting to see what that brings up. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap it up, except for I just also want to say that the Sabian symbol for this new moon is really beautiful, actually. And this is where, when we can really feel into the constellation Virgo from that earthy, mother, nurturing, fertile, purifying, clearing, cleaning space. Think about Virgo in the body, just to sidetrack for a moment. It corresponds to the inner, I think it's the intestines, the large intestines, which discriminates in the body the nutrients that it wants to maintain and sustain, and the toxic shit that it wants to discard, right? And take out of your body. I mean, you can go into that quite deeply, and there's so many layers even on the health sort of model of level of things, right, relative to what large intestines do, the intricacies and complexities of all of that. And I'm not a doctor, but I do know that Virgo is the archetype in the zodiac that corresponds to that part of the body. And we can translate that into when we are in Virgo season, Virgo energy. That's what we're doing. We are actually working through a process of recognizing what is healthy, what sort of nutrients have we been cultivating, right? And that can be internally, relative to diet, health, and so forth. And that can also be relevant to our mind, our emotional body, our spiritual body, because Pisces sits opposite Virgo. Pisces is spirit. And this Sabian symbol speaks all about spirit. So that's the best way to really work with this energy for self-improvement, which we can always do that, right? If somebody said to me, I've got nothing more to work on, I've done it all, I would probably find that very hard to believe. So the Sabian symbol would be 5 degrees of Virgo, because the degrees of the new moon is 4, so we have to go to the subsequent degree. And the heading is a man becoming aware of nature, spirits, and normally unseen spiritual agencies. I love that. I freaking love that. That, to me, connects so much to Spica, which is in the constellation of Virgo. And as I was saying before, Spica is one of the brightest stars, the most spiritualized star, and the star source, which is what we are made of, that represents the highest spiritual protection here while we are here in the physical. That could mean a lot of different things depending on who you are and where you're at and what's going on. But it's very comforting, very comforting. Then it just goes further to say the opening of new levels of consciousness. That's the keynote for this Sabian symbol. The consciousness is gradually reaching beyond physical characteristics and becoming aware of energy processes, i.e., of the dynamism of forces which externalize themselves as life forms. One has to reflect on that to feel into it, right? And see how that speaks to you relative to the new moon in Virgo, because it's a good idea to look at where the new moon in Virgo is in your chart, reflect on the Sabian symbol, reflect on Mars as well, squaring this new moon. At best, again, like I said, completely energize you and give you that sense of drive to be proactive, right, about the Virgo things in your life, as it were. Virgonize yourself and your life in the ways that you need to, are ready for, and want to, or a sense of inward conflict that can come up with, namely with men, actually, because we're talking about two masculine principles, and sometimes the matter of gender, comes in as, well, should we ascribe gender to this and to that? And, sometimes it's appropriate and sometimes we can, and sometimes we need to keep an open mind as well. But typically, the Sun and Mars are masculine energies. Virgo, however, is a feminine energy. So there's a mixture there, right? But it is about our own sense of drive and will, and finding a way to work with this on an integrated level, the Sun and the Mars. And careful with the information that we are absorbing and speaking, right? Because of that Mars in Gemini. But I really like this Mercury in Libra retrograde that's going to happen soon. is connected to this lunation cycle to some extent, and it is in Libra. And yeah, once again, it speaks to fairness, equality, justice, but can also be speaking to, relative to this new moon, the importance of keeping our mind focused on a sense of balance with the things we're doing. I suppose, just to give a simple example, somebody might decide with this new moon in Virgo to go from eating everything and transitioning straight into vegan. And I'm not a health expert, but I do feel that it would be really extreme, not impossible, but really extreme to go from that to that overnight, so to speak. It has to be a work in progress, a gradual sort of day-to-day thing where you are adjusting things, right? Because the physical body as well is going to react. It's going to respond and react to the changes we make to it, right? And then again, for some of us, it depends who we are, because if we are very, if you've got a fire rising sign, for instance, that's quite a blessing, because that usually does imply tremendous source of vitality in the body, and that can speak to being able to overcome a lot of things that some others wouldn't be able to overcome so easily. So it depends how robust one's physical body is as well, relative to changes you want to make to health and so forth. Some people are just easier than others, and these are finer tuned details that each of us need to obviously consider for ourselves, right? But whichever way you go, whatever you do with this, the best thing is to find a healthy outlet for this Mars energy that's going to be heavily stimulated through this lunation cycle, which will be unfolding over the next 4 weeks. And keep in mind the Spica energy that's being activated while the sun's in Virgo, then when the sun goes into Libra, and how she holds tremendous power over protection and justice, and kind of turning things around where there might be sources and forces that are coming at you in a way that's not quite right. That's not fair and not just. She helps with those sort of things. So if she's strong in your chart, really pay attention to her. She sits at 23 Libra, so you might have her, if you have her on a luminary, sun, moon, if you have her on Venus, all the personal planets, that's a lot easier to identify. You might have her on an angle in your chart. Just don't underestimate the power of Spica. Yeah, she's wonderful. Just seeing if there was anything else. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So Virgo reminds me of the garden, harvesting, purifying, clearing, cleaning on all levels, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Remember what I said before about the Virgo in terms of the physical body. It is that process in our body that maintains nutrients, the things that our body needs to survive and to be healthy, and discards the toxic stuff that our body absorbs, whether that's through walking down the street and just breathing all the crap that comes out of the cars. I've just forgotten the name of that. Pollution, so on and so forth. The body is incredibly magical and miraculous in how it works through, the liver. The liver is just phenomenal. The work that the liver does is just phenomenal, right? So these are all really interesting things to think about with a new moon in Virgo, just to help us address and get to the things that we either overlook, not pay much attention to, deny. It's a time to work on that. Virgo is a sign of work. It's work, work, work. It's not about playing. We were playing when the sun was in Leo. That's when we were playing, playing with our heart, our self-expression, all of that. Now we're at Virgo. Now it's time to do the work again. And the work, it's rewarding. It pays off. It can pay off a lot. I just keep coming back to when I look at this new moon with Mars, it concerns me a little bit, because Mars is a very dangerous planet sometimes, we'll just have to see what it brings up on that collective level. You'd need to do like a thorough investigation into what each country is going through at the moment and has been going through the last few months, for instance, to get to something perhaps more specific, right? Because this new moon would activate each country in a different way, right? So interesting for the timing of it in Australia. It happens to be in the 6th house, which is the Virgo house. So yeah, lots of matters around health are obviously going to be really accentuated and highlighted over the next month here in Melbourne specifically. And there's been quite a bit coming up in the news of late. Not that I watch the news, but occasionally something will sort of fly through my ears, as it were, and I'll just kind of listen a little bit. But yeah, I see this as probably bringing up some problems in the health system here in Melbourne. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, let's just focus on ourselves from the point of view of just improving on who we are and what we are doing here and how we can make things better for ourselves, especially given that the entire planet is very screwed up at the moment, right? On every single spectrum. That's not coming to an end anytime soon. There's still a lot more that we need to work through. I just want to read this. Virgo is the goddess of innocence and purity. According to the creation, Zeus sent Pandora down to earth as a punishment to man. Because of her curiosity, she opened the box the gods had warned her not to and let the plagues of hate, envy, sickness, etc. out into the world. Of course, hope did not escape, but the earth was just unbearable, which is pretty much where we're at right now, right? Because we are at huge tipping point, huge shifting point. But that little sentence there, it describes what's happening on the earth plane right now. And it has previously as well. I understand that. Then it says, one by one, the gods returned to the heavens to live. Astrea was the last to leave the earth. She became the constellation Virgo. And according to legend, when the golden age comes again, Astrea will return to the earth. Linked to Virgo are the myths of Isis, Ceres, Astrea, Demeter, Ishtar, and Mary, Mother of Jesus. In Babylonian mythology, the Virgo constellation was known as the furrow, representing the goddess Shala's ear of corn or ear of grain, which is Spica. The star Spica retains the tradition as it is Latin for ear of grain, one of the major products of the Mesopotamian furrow, in brackets Sumerian ABSIN, meaning the furrow. Virgo and fertility are linked because of this. The Babylonians, who also linked Virgo to the Ishtar, goddess of procreation, who went down into the Hades world underworld to recover her spouse, Thammuz, god of harvest. So there's so much richness in mythology always, and so much richness in just the intricate sort of connections with the archetypes, the constellations, you know, the planets and so forth. And just having a little bit of understanding, a little bit of insight here and there gives us more depth, you know, and a richer field to play with when we're looking at a particular zodiac sign constellation relative to a new moon cycle. So new moon in Virgo, so many rich layers. I love it. There's so much beauty in this, and it's just there for us in a fertile field to create from. But we must, within that, recognize where we have to work further. You know, it's that inner sort of critical self-analysis, but not critical to the level of making us feel shamed or putting ourselves down and things like that. That's kind of futile, because that takes us a bit into victim mode or position, but rather just from a healthy, rational, honest look at our the things that we, you know, really need to further develop and work on. I'm going to go, and I'll be back soon. I'll be talking about Mercury retrograde, maybe with Gary. He's just in the process of having moved at the moment, so he's got a lot going on, and he's not sure he'll be able to meet with me while Mercury is exactly retrograde. We'll just see how that plays out. In any case, I will be talking about it, and also talking about Mars retrograde in Gemini. As I said, it doesn't go, it hasn't been retrograde in Gemini since 1943, somewhere around there. And it is part of the energy of this new moon. So we've got the virgin, purity, fertile, goddess field to work with, and Spica and Astrologer and all those beautiful goddesses, the Virgin Mary, so on and so forth. And then we've got Mars, who's always an aggressor, who's more or less ready for a fight. And sometimes the fight is necessary, but we just need to be sure that we are stepping into a fight, as it were, that we've given some consideration towards as well. Mercury in Libra, really finding the balance of what's worth fighting for, what isn't, you know, where would it be better for me to place this energy that could bring more fruits to my labors, to my desires, to my passions, Mars. See you soon. Thanks for watching. Let me know how you're going, and let me know about that Ceres, Venus, Saturn, Uranus nodes. I'd be very interested to know if any of you have a story to share around that, and or as moving forward about this new moon. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and where you're at with that. And see you very, very soon. Thanks for watching, and feel free to share this video and subscribe if you haven't, if you appreciate what I'm offering, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.